Now that we've kind of touched base on what the important pieces from a life cycle process are, one of those key functions is patching. Patch management is paramount to our success. As we all know, ransomware will run rampant without uh, proper security measures being taken. Some of those is staying up to date with best practices, with patching, making sure that the patching is properly deployed, is consistently tested, and any form of actions from a remediation process are taken swiftly and efficiently. As a result, some of these devices that become uh, that fall outside of that and slip through the grates, those unmanaged, unpatched laptops, PCs, devices, whatever they may be, those expose our business to unforeseen risk, unexpected and unnecessary risk that all it takes is to be consistent and reliable with our efforts. And to speak a little bit more about that, I wanted to talk to Saul a little bit more about security. Saul?
Thanks, Trent. Thanks, guys, for having me here. Saul here, the security engineer for Choice, and yeah, a lot of the responsibility falls under patch management for myself and the team. And I want to just jump right into it. Just like the slide shows, 60% of breaches involved unpatched vulnerabilities, and quite frankly, a lot of them are not zero-day vulnerabilities. These are vulnerabilities that have been sitting out in the wild and have been unmanaged or overlooked. And I think a lot of it has to do with what Trent mentioned earlier is the traditional approach with IT. As we scale in to more of a modern IT approach with automation and even AI in the mix, we can we can start to look at patching as an afterthought and insecurity from experience. Um, Pushing it to a later date is usually too late. We don't want to be notified that you know, a vulnerability is impacting our business because we forgot to patch, right? And unpatched, like the previous slide, I don't know if you guys caught that, says unpatched, unprepared, and unprotected. And that's usually the gap that attackers live for is they're looking for any type of flaw or any type of entry point into your environment. And they're constantly scanning, the internet or scanning the network to see what way can they find a way into the environment, unfortunately. And it's the world that we live in. And it's not getting any easier if we're not maintaining our systems. The important thing to also remember is that, as I mentioned before, it's not all about 0 days, though they do drop vulnerabilities saying, hey, 0 day has just dropped. We have to make sure we act urgently. I think it's more of a strategic approach when it comes to patching. We have to kind of standardize what we're looking at. And a lot of it, it involves asset management, asset inventory, going back to the life cycle management in IT, gathering the actual assets in their environment and categorizing them based on either the criticality or the actual level of impact it would take for our business to bring another machine up. We're looking at workloads that are internet facing, right? We want to categorize these and prioritize these because those systems, like I said, they're internet facing, so we're in a constant race against 8 billion people in the world versus the internal stuff that we have inside. And we don't want to take that chance. So, kind of circling back to a lot of the asset inventory and the categorization, once we have a good visibility of what we have inside of our environment, we can start to classify each system based on its use case, right? And then we can start prioritizing into our business on what can we bring up or what can we afford to prioritize first. And that comes with the criticality of the patches as well, right? We see some critical patches being deployed, some security patches being deployed. Some of them have a little bit more of a severity or more of an impact versus others. And that's where we have to ensure that we have visibility over every asset, whether it's a piece of hardware, operating system, or some type of software that we're using. These are all surface attack surfaces, I would say, for threat actors to use a way or another entryway into our environment. And with asset inventory in mind, right, we have the ability to now maintain and kind of prepare ourselves to know, hey, we might have an operating system that's coming into life, or what version are we running of this certain software. We might need to make sure that we update to the latest software, or look at another product to make sure that we're maintaining and operating at a consistent level. And another thing or another component we want to bring into is automating where possible. We have this vision of automation being some sort of magic scripting tool that we use, but a lot of the time it's tools that can automate some of the processes for us, standardizing the patching. And that comes with a lot of the components that I mentioned before, is knowing what we have, and then also understanding when can we afford to patch, right? When can we afford to apply these patches in a consistent basis, and also um, scheduling the time to do that. So once we have all those things in mind, and we can start to build a plan and standardize this process, we might have some ability to automate that process, reducing the error of anything going wrong, or maybe miscalculating the patch. And if we can test the patch, if possible, then even better, right? But now now we're not really being reactive to this instance, we're being proactive. So that way these patches are consistently deployed across the environment. We're maintaining the latest operating system. We're maintaining the latest software version that they have available. And on top of that, just making sure we're remaining resilient and compliant across the board. Because standardization builds resilience and consistency, right? With the automation making it more efficient. Reporting is a big factor as well. And reporting can be um, a compilation of, validating that the patches were actually installed and applied in a sensible fashion, but then also some proof or evidence, excuse me, to make sure that we have some documentation to report to our executive team members, or perhaps some auditors, because in IT we will get audited, and we have to validate that we are maintaining some sort of compliance, to even be able to open up a business or maintain a business, or even create new business partners. These are requirements that will take our business to the next level, but also protect our business and our reputation. So, patching is not necessarily just a hygiene or a technical hygiene. It's a business enabler, for for the whole environment and for your partners as well. So hopefully we can flip the actual mindset that we have now, and not necessarily think in a reactive sense, but think in a more proactive sense, to ensure that we can automate some of these processes. And if not, making sure we have some type of standardization that we can continue on moving forward. And kind of to wrap things up, is the initial slide said uh, to be, I believe, unpatched, unprotected, or unprepared. We want to make sure that we get patched, so that way we can be prepared and stay protected. And that is probably the most cost effective, which for a business is probably the most important thing. It's the easiest and most, I guess, the less risky way to um, secure your environment. It is through patching. And there's many, stories out there about these type of scenarios when a patch is available, and uh, a certain business or a certain industry might not patch in time for months, and unfortunately, they get they get impacted by that vulnerability. I mean, for one instance, WannaCry was one of those examples that impacted not just nationally, but a global scale, right? It impacted hospitals, government agencies, small, medium, large enterprises. This is a patch that was available for months, and unfortunately, those victims were falling behind, and we don't want to be that. We want to illustrate how to be proactive by making sure we can maintain some consistent and some standardization when it comes to patching. So That's pretty much all I got. I would keep going on, but I don't want to take too much time. I'll pass it on to Will if he has anything to add to that.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Will Clem. I'm the customer success manager at Choice. And compared to these guys, I'm actually the new guy. Coming up on 5 years of Choice Solutions. But before that, I spent a decade in the fire service as a firefighter paramedic here in the Kansas City area. And so a lot of uh, my foundational experience comes from routine training, repetitive uh, skill practice. And so I liken that to a lot of the processes that we do here at Choice Solutions. We want to train like it's the real deal, make sure that in the middle of the night, we can repeat the same action the same way that we can in the middle of the day, and that everything's written down so that everybody knows what to do when something does go wrong. Um, like Saul was saying, specifically with patching. Patching is it's the simplest and most effective security investment that a business can make. You know, most major breaches in the last decade started with an unpatched system. They left the door unlocked. And if you think about patching as the locks on your doors and windows, it brings it into perspective for me. And so, you might have the most advanced alarm system, you might have the most advanced endpoint protection system, but if you leave a window open, they're just going to get in through the window. And for the executive level, it's about risk reduction, and your brand is on the line, your reputation is on the line. You could be fined, if there is a security breach, and so it just ensures that your company doesn't end up in the headlines for the wrong reasons. And with our managed services, patching, it's not something that's reactive or inconsistent. We take an inventory every time that we onboard a client. We know exactly what's in the environment. We have agents on every single system, and then they're all patched. It becomes a disciplined process, and it becomes something that we can measure and show that the entire organization is protected. And that's one of the major advantages with our managed services offering, is that we can do it the same way every single time. We can show that we do it the same way every single time. And it takes that burden off of an internal IT team.